remarks and then we can come and sit here.
That makes sense.
Yeah, only the speaker will be here.
Yeah,
Okay.
so can we go and sit?
If you want, you can please come ahead.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yes, we will push the turn.
Yes, yes. Please, please.
Otherwise, you know, the head of the tail.
I'm extremely sorry, actually, this became a little crunch because of the offline issue. Come sit.
Good morning. Good morning. Morning.
This is your seat.
No, it's okay, you can sit. I will have it.
You're always full friend.
We now welcome the esteemed chairperson for the session, Dr. S.M.E. Shivkumar, Professor and Area Chairperson of Economics at KJ and Dean Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at Somaya Vidya University. He has over 30 years of teaching and research experience and has been associated with KJ since 2003. Dr. Shivkumar has so far completed guiding 14 doctoral students in various sub-themes of economics and general management. He is on doctoral advisory boards and acts as an external examiner cum referee for 5 universities. He has published books and research papers in several peer-reviewed journals. We welcome you, sir. We would request you to address the gathering.
Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. I would attempt giving a brief on Cepar, its basic functions, and how the past 8 years have gone by spending a few seconds reviewing each year's activities of this center. The Center for Economic Policy Analysis and Research, Cepar, it was established under the Department of Economics, Simpson, in 2013. The center has been supported financially and administratively by this institute, KJC. It envisages promoting research in a non-partisan basis and becoming a think tank that promotes application-oriented policy research. The discussions outcome of the research will be shared with the respective regulators, corporate professionals, and academic community. Vision to identify and analyze major economic policy issues that have emerged in the globalized economic environment. It aims at being intellectually a vibrant place where policy issues can be debated by promoting cutting-edge research leading towards equitable, inclusive, and sustainable solutions to emerging economic issues. The mission is to be an independent center dedicated to extensive, in-depth research on current economic policy issues surrounding economic globalization and disseminating it widely to all stakeholders in the public as well as the private sectors. A few of the objectives of this center include to conduct applied research in existing and emerging economic issues, to evolve into a leading policy center engaged in research, teaching, consultancy, training and capacity building, and work on improving development outcomes, to promote innovative and applied research that will generate practical, inclusive, and sustainable solutions to emerging economic problems, which can be used by different stakeholders, to establish collaborative networks and research partnerships with other professionals and practitioners within India and outside, to disseminate knowledge through white papers, articles, research papers, publications, training, consultancy services, conferences, and seminars. The center has a backing of an advisory board. Some of the faculty members of SimServe are the members in that. The center's expertise includes academic and industry experience, published national and international research papers, undertake research and consultancy projects, ICSS project, 3 patents, highly qualified and experienced full-time faculty members. And the areas include applied economics, macroeconomic modeling, public finance and policy, business environment, international finance, econometrics, financial inclusion, and environmental economics. A wrap-up of how the past 8 years have been. In 2013, a 2-day national conference titled Econometric Applications for Regulations Plural that was conducted on February 21 and 22, 2014. It was jointly organized by the Center along with the Golden Jubilee year, that is 2013-14, for the Indian Econometrics Society, EIES. And the theme was Reviving Indian Economy, Issues and Challenges. In 2014, the Center has had collaborations with the Mahindra Integrated Business Solutions, MIBS, and the Center had conducted a 1-day knowledge conference with the theme Economics of Innovations towards bringing together India's SME fraternity. That was held on Saturday, December 19, 2015. And the funding of this, we were fortunate to receive the total funding from an All India regulator with the condition that the name should not be spelled out. It has been there and globally renowned. In 2015-16 academic year, Cepar organized a 1-day panel discussion on the theme of creating optimal economic value through right mergers and acquisitions, which was conducted on October 8, 2016 at SIMSA, that is this very building, and in collaboration with the National Institute of Securities Markets, as well as the other collaborator being Finance Academy of the Mahindra and Mahindra Group. 2016-17, the annual conference was again in collaboration with NISM on the theme of economic research in capital markets that was held on September 22, 2017, and we also had a Finance Academy of M&M as a collaborator. In 2017-18, the NISM as well as Finance Academy of M&M joined with the Cepar, and we have conducted second part of the series with the theme Economic Research in Capital Markets. In the 2018-19 year, Cepar's annual conference with the same collaborators had the theme, again continuation of the same broad theme of economic research in capital markets, that was held in October on 2 days, 12th and 13th. 2019-20 2-day annual conference was held in October 2019 on the theme of globalization at crossroads, with collaboration from the same 2 collaborators, NISM and Mahindra and Mahindra's Finance Academy. 2020-21 was a challenging year due to the imposition of lockdown. Annual conference was held with the contemporary theme of that time, coping up with the post-lockdown economic environment, that was held on February 12th and 13th, 2021 with the same collaborators, NISM and M&M. 21-22, the theme was economic analysis for contemporary global business, which was held for 2 days, February 11th and 12th, 2022. Besides NISM, we had the collaborations received from BCCI, ANDISA. These were the 2 other collaborators. And the current theme, the 9th annual conference, will be, as we all are aware of, revisiting globalization with focus on spatial and temporal aspects. We have planned this for only 1 day. Thank you.
you so much, sir. We would now like to invite Dr. P.P. Shastri. Dr. Shastri began his career as a research scholar in the economics department. He then served as the general manager head of policy planning division and investor relations cell of UTI Mumbai. He went on to become the director of UTI Institute of Capital Markets before his superannuation in 2006. He has also published a book on relevance on modernization to population change, various research papers and other publications. He was the member of informal group set up by the Reserve Bank of India in February 2000 to August 2000 to study the role of bank deposits in savings mobilization. He has a vast and successful career and an illustrious journey to look back on. Now I request Dr. P.P. Shastri, the former CGM at Unit Trust of India, to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you for your introduction. Probably I think you have mentioned more than what I did. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. I am here mainly because of my association to Dr. Asha. She was my colleague in Unit Trust of India. She was recruited as specialist economist. That's how I must say I am here. Initially also with this institute, I had some association. The first Director General happened to be a good friend of mine. He is no more, Mr. Narasimha. Now, I am also, I must say, delighted to be with all of you, the bright, brilliant students here who are economists and also the future policy makers. And here there are 4 eminent speakers after me. So I will not take much time to come between you and the eminent speakers. I have only a small duty to perform, that I will do that, and I will promise I will not take more time. The first seed of globalization commenced whether knowingly or unknowingly with the setting up of League of Nations in 1920. I say it is knowingly, unknowingly because of the fact it is not preconceived to set up that institution. It is due to the culmination of the factors that the First World War has torn the economies of many countries, and as a result they have set up that. And at that time, mainly their focus was security and peace to bring to the among the community of nations. Then it didn't stop. The war didn't stop. Stop means the World War was over, but after a few years, the Second World War has come. So then subsequently, they felt that the scope of this is not sufficient. We need to do, it is not only peace and security, there are many jobs like social security, humanity, food security, like that. So the United Nations came into existence to cover the post-Second World War social progress, human rights, improved living standards, and sustainable future. The scope was more broad, and subsequently the trade organization, also WTO, has also come. Probably that has culminated to bring more the different constituents together. Globalization in recent years picked up its momentum with the advocacy of free movement of goods and services, people, economies, liberalization of import protocol, and foreign investment, free cross-border movement of resources. If we revisit the classical economic time also, they did also advocate that free trade is required in order to reap the benefits of the mutual benefit from among the countries. That is, where you have the cost advantage, so you export. Where you don't have, where other countries have cost advantage, so you. That was advocated. And in this context, it probably is not out of context to touch something about our own country. Of late, you might have heard many talk about the demographic dividend, which we talk. So I think demographic dividend, when we talk, there are three aspects. One is the population below the age 20 who will be joining the labor force, and the present labor force who are in 20 to 60 age group. And those they are, of course, these days I don't know whether it is considered as a burden above 60. I am also above 60. Now those, fortunately, if you see these three segments which do contribute to the economy in a different ways, we don't have much of the burden as compared with other countries, the aged population. India has only 9%, China has 12%, and I think if it is, Japan has 28%, and other European countries across 20 to 25%. We have only 9%. Now, coming to the point that the working age group, that is 20 to 60, we have 41%, and this is a comparatively quite an advantage when we compare with other countries. And now below 20, who will be joining the labor force, they constitute about 51%. But these 3 points only highlight what is the structurally advantageous position we have. And if we look to the related factor, that is literacy, we have only 74%. But that 74% which census has enunciated is not something admirable in my view, because this census, they define that the literate means those who can read and write. But it is not backed by skill, all those people 74%. So we need to actually highlight how to take the advantage of this demographic dividend if we have to go forward. And in globalization, that is all the more required. And this particular point, if we look at the micro level, we need to say that this is no doubt a good opportunity, but the opportunity can turn out to be a threat if we don't take the advantage. Now, I think I need to elaborate with the threat also. That means if the young people of 22 and above, if they are not gainfully employed, then what will be the result? Violence in the society and unrest in the society. So we need to take that to our right stride and equip. Our education is also slightly need to be probably modified to equip these people with skilled jobs rather than conventional education. Now, the demographic dividend can turn out to be demographic disaster if we don't attend. We have in Indian context also we need to see that we probably examine. Here there are researchers and bright students who are also here. How much of the amount government spends is resulting in unproductive expenditure? This unproductive expenditure can really make the economy not to take the full benefit. Indeed, it doesn't mean that we have not achieved anything. There are many improvements in infrastructure and technology and cutting procedures across the board in recent years. The traditional world economy assumed a pattern of northern hemisphere is superior to the southern hemisphere. the Northern Hemisphere, they have all the technology, they are rich, they are endowed with good skills, so that sort of concept prevailed till recently. And subsequently this pattern has changed with the World War II. After World War II, many countries, particularly the developing countries, have embarked on the process of reforms. As a result, some of the countries, in fact, you might have heard that BRIC countries, they are more in the limelight. It doesn't mean other countries are not. With the BRIC countries now, they are also investing in other developed countries. So that is a remarkable thing if we look into. Ushering market forces is the requirement rather than geopolitical interests. Of course, geopolitical interests do prevail, we can't stop them, but we need to take the maximum benefits as much as possible. Elimination of capitalist hegemony and integration of economies are the need of the hour. In the process of globalization, we have not only headwinds but tailwinds as well. It is not an unalloyed bliss like any other phenomena for that matter that exists in the world. But it doesn't mean that globalization, we need to look at it from a negative perspective. Globalization will remain. With the speed and scale of technological advancement coupled with prudent and flexible policy framework, globalization will help in economic advancement and welfare. The academicians like you who are here and the policymakers also need to probably look into one important aspect of research, that is not only cross-sectional but longitudinal as well. Cross-sectional research will give only at a point of time. We don't know what shape it will take when we analyze the data at a period of time. So I request particularly the young students of this management institute, they have all the capability and the capacity to do that. Now, the other aspect is globalization is to be treated as mutual help, but not as a mutual dependence. The moment we give the negative connotation of dependence, then the entire benefit which we want to derive, probably it will get solved. So with this, I must end now. We call it, what is that? We have Vasudhaiva Kutumbam. So globalization is nothing but Vasudhaiva Kutumbam. In this context, one comparison probably we can bring. We used to have joint family structure. Probably some of the people who are here might not be knowing. But joint family structure, how it is, there were definitely advantages as well as small disadvantages. The small disadvantage is adjustment, and the major advantage is, it is not that present nuclear families. What will happen if my son school bus doesn't come? What will happen if somebody will come and pick up? So globalization is also like that. It is mutual dependence, nothing else. Vasudhaiva Kutumbam. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you, Shastri sir, for enlightening us all on behalf of all the young mind present over here. We'll do our best for the upcoming years of the demographic today. So now I would like to introduce our invited expert for today, Mr. Jamal Mekhalai, CEO of Mekhalai Financial Services Private Limited. Mr. Jamal is an alum of IIT Mumbai and Rice University, Houston, from where he completed his doctoral research in biomedical engineering. He has worked as freelance media consultant, developing and implementing projects for various non-governmental organizations in the US, curator of appropriate technology at Fashion Model. partner at McLeay, and finally CEO at McLeay Financial Services Private Limited. We invite you to deliver the expert talk about the theme Gandhi's take on globalization. Over to you, sir.
Thank you all. And first off, I must really thank you for giving me an opportunity. I haven't been on a college campus in so many decades I can hardly count. And the energy of the field is driving in today was beautiful. So thank you very much for that. I'd also like to thank Mr. Shastri for putting sort of context to what the discussion should be. Unfortunately, I am focusing more on the moment. And you know, I don't know this organization very well, but I do know Samir Somaya, who is the premier person here. And I was talking to, I think, Asha, you know, Gandhiji, people talk about Gandhiji a lot. Not very many people, or certainly organizations, live by it. And I really feel that the Somaya Business Group and the university is truly Gandhian in that sense. And you know, I was here recently at an art event, and I saw on one of the walls, there are these 7 social sins of Gandhiji. And first off, I was a little surprised and asked Samiki, why is it written Uta? Why is it written that commerce without morality is a sin? Instead of saying commerce with morality is a virtue. But that was Gandhiji's decision, you know. But it made me think about the state of globalization today, you know. Now, globalization, Mr. Shastri really described it beautifully. That is the ideal, right? How it should be, where everyone is helping each other, right? But in joint families also, as you know, both takleef bhi hote hain. And I'd say the truth today, as I see it, is that the word globalization is a grand word, which is actually used to cover up what it really is. What it really is how do I, Bechtel, USA, save costs? It is really, it started with that and it continues with that. How does large companies save costs? Now, I would say saving costs is not a bad thing in itself. Saving costs, improving efficiency is necessary and it's good. But, except when in planning and implementation, it flouts or it fulfills one of Gandhiji's first sins, which is commerce without morality. Now, the results of that, you know, you may not see the results in 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 20 years. In fact, globalization has done great stuff. It has lifted millions out of poverty in India, China, various countries. But it has done it at one of the costs which we are now beginning to taste of creating more and more and more inequality. Both in developing countries and in developed countries. Now, in developing countries, I mean, the statistics, you know, every few weeks you read something about 9 people own everything. It's changed a little bit since last week, but more alag baat hai. And I'm saying that in India, and this is like that, actually, while it's in principle not a good thing, it's really not the end of the world. Because, you know, they say a rising tide lifts all boats. So if the richest man makes 10 times as much, but the poorest man doubles what he's making, it's not so bad, right? But you go to the developed countries, and what you are seeing there now is absolutely horrifying. You know, first off, over the last 15 years or so, there was this, what I call the killing fields of the opioid epidemic. You know, in all the industrial towns in the US, where, you know, business carried on, a lot of people were making money, but people were losing jobs and had no life. And they were driven into all sorts of drugs. But what is really horrifying, and I discovered this just recently, that, you know, cities like San Francisco, which were the loveliest, most livable cities in the world for decades, there are now people, and thousands or hundreds of people, defecating in the streets. I mean, San Francisco is looking like Bombay was, you know, 30 years, 40 years ago on the train tracks. And San Francisco is not alone. A friend of mine told me the other day that she saw somebody performing, if you want to use that word, in Venice, California. Yesterday, I met an American guy, I would be talking about it, and he used to work at the public library in New York. He was at the public, and he said, there are these beautiful, I don't know how many of you have been there, these beautiful lines in front. He saw somebody right behind one of those lines. So I'm saying, my God. And you can't say this is singularly caused by globalization, but this is caused by commerce without morality, without anybody having any thought. But banana. What happens on the side, well, the system will take care of it. But ultimately, the system is to blame. So clearly, I mean, Gandhiji understood, right? Gujarati, you need business to progress, but you need it in a way with some concern, some thought. Even if you go back to even in the US, Henry Ford, when he was started building automobiles, one of his things was, I want my workers to be paid enough to buy my product, right? Or I'm very frustrated because I can see the problem, but I don't know the solution. There needs to be some structural change in the tax code. See, now it's gone too far, but when there's also inequality being measured everywhere, right? What's his name? That French guy started the trend about 10 years ago, the Gini coefficient, etc., etc. So maybe we need to figure out a way where you could use inequality in a country, this is within a country, to trigger changes in the tax code. I don't have the answer, unfortunately, because, it's a nice thought, but how do you do it? So that is, sorry, you put the first slide on, I didn't realize this was on. I've already talked about it, right? Commerce without morality. You go to the second slide, please. So, as I said, the value generated has been distributed in about as unfair a way as it could be, right? Till as in the 80s, 1980s, capital gains tax in the US was 80%. I looked it up and I was shocked because I wasn't paying attention at that time. And who would think of that, right? Today it's 15%, right? Now, if you just look at the amount of capital in the world, it seems obvious to me that this has been too low for too long. Now, most people are trying to reduce capital gains. I'm saying that is the problem. The fact is there has been so much capital generated that over the last 30, 40 years, that asset prices have been rising and rising and rising and rising, and now inflation is rising and rising and rising, right? So, unfortunately, problems of this nature don't get, they take time to bubble. And when they do it, sometimes, how do you resolve it? Revolution is the answer, but how does that do anything either, right? So, I'm saying there's so much capital that I'm sure you're aware. I think a year and a half ago, till the Fed finally started raising interest rates, there was trillions of dollars of capital. India is proud of being a $2 or $3 trillion economy. This was $60 trillion of capital that professional investors were investing at negative interest rates. So take my money, give me back less. Now, that makes no sense at all. But why was that? It's because capital has not been appropriately taxed over the decades. And it's not about Trump or Republicans or Democrats, everybody. And why? Because of Gandhiji's second sin. Politics without principle. Who writes the tax code? Politicians. Who buys the politicians? Let's be frank, right? Rich people. There are a lot, in the US, I'm focusing on the US because it's the loudest example. It's true everywhere, right? I think about 6 or 8, 10 years ago, the Supreme Court in the US passed a judgment which says there's no restraint on how much money an individual can put into a political campaign. Open and shut, take the money and do what I want. So these are structural issues. How do you change them? But my point is, if you don't change them, you're going to have all kinds of just horrifying results. And inequality is the number one problem, right? That's the sum of it. I mean, come back to your joint family, right? If you have 5 kids or 2 kids or whatever, and one is treated differently, and you are treated differently, it's going to lead to a problem, right? And that's really what I feel is, like I said, social sin number 2. I mean, it's very naive in a sense to say this, right? Because we all believe that politicians, though, are all unprincipled. But I'll tell you something very interesting. I used to be a trustee of an NGO called Praja, right? And Praja focuses on, their tagline is making democracy work. And one of the best programs they have is they get young people from colleges to work as interns with different MLAs or municipal councillors, etc. And getting feedback from them, you'll discover that actually it's not true that every politician is a bad person, right? Although it certainly seems that way just from looking at the papers. So I'm saying the trick is we've got to really find people who are committed to change and work with them. It takes time. So all of you, you've got a lot to do, all right? So, as I said, the social sin number 2, politics without principle. But let's come to the third slide. Now, what I'm going to try to do here is to link that to sort of the financial market situation we are in today. Okay? Which is, financial markets have become insanely unstable. Like I said, 6 of the last 8 financial crises have occurred since 1980. The biggest one was 1929, etc., etc. But here, every 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, drama explodes. Sometimes the villains get caught. But every time it is the man on the street who pays. I mean, that's the nature of the beast, So, how this knowledge without character, what does that mean? See, you would think that regulators, right, they have the maximum amount of information and the smart people knowledge about what's going on. However, since the 80s, again, all of this started in the 80s, 1987 in particular, when Alan Greenspan was the chairman of the Fed. My personal belief is he just liked being in the news. Both back with that. My father, who was also a financier, he used to say, the central bank should be like God. God is there, but you never hear or see God until there is a crisis. But today, the central bank is talking every day. Kuch na kuch bolte rehte hain. But the real problem is they were telling people what they were going to do. Right? Now, financial markets are by definition volatile, which means they carry risk, which means you need to be careful. You need to think about how you're going to manage the risk. But if the boss, the man with all the knowledge, is telling you, I am going to keep interest rates low for the next 2 years, or maybe even take them lower, then it becomes very easy for you to actually, if you're well positioned, if you're a rich man, it's very easy for you to start making money. In fact, I have a cousin, very wealthy man in Switzerland, and he told me in so many words, he said, it's like taking candy from a baby. He's in real estate business. So he said, I buy property, Now, normally when you buy anything, you assume the amortized cost, including the interest cost over 3 years, 10 years. He said, no. I will do 3 months financing because I knew interest rates were coming down. It was great. So there again, because of this knowledge without character. Now, I'm not saying they're villains. Everybody sort of gets caught in the pot, right? But they're not conscious that they have a real, the kind of position they're in. They have to actually make people wonder what's going on rather than telling them what's going to go on. So this is one of the reasons why I feel the markets today are in this sort of situation. As a result, investors have forgotten how to price risk, right? And so, as you see, 6 of the last 8 financial crises have occurred since 1980. And today the situation is even more, right? I'm going to shift now to the markets. I have a little bit of experience. Can you give me the next slide, please? Now, let's look at today. This is the Dow. The green line is the Dow in 2008, right? Percentage change. The blue line is today. I was absolutely horrified a few months ago when I saw that these charts were absolutely one on top of the other, right? Then, okay, it's east, things are a little bit better. But are they? See, what is happening globally today? Nobody knows, right? The Fed doesn't know, right? Because inflation, for the longest time, Fed said inflation was, transient hai, nikal jayega, ye wo. It was there and it was growing. Yesterday, some data came out saying US growth, 500,000 jobs they added or something like that in the non-farm payrolls. So suddenly everybody, while they were quite happy things are coming down, the Fed has started, slowing down the rate hikes. But now if employment is so strong, what's going to happen? So people don't, my belief is that, the Fed has a mandate to bring inflation down to 2%, right? Now it's come down from, I think, 7.5, 8 to 5 or something, I can't remember the details, or maybe from 8 to 6. But I think the problem is that they are never going to reach 2. See, because what were the pluses of globalization, right? While all this was happening, what was also happening, right? There was increasing flow of people, increasing, sort of supply chains got tighter and tighter and tighter. The China price, remember we used to talk about the China price, nobody talks about that anymore. So everything was very cheap. India was just coming into the market, right? So employment costs were low, right? So that's the time in which they set the target inflation rate in the US at 2%. They're never going to get there. The average for the preceding 30, 40 years was 4.3 or something like that. Now, if the Fed, who has said, and they talk a lot, right? And they say, we're going to bring it to 2. We'll do what it takes to come to 2. Now, what if they're never going to be able to do that? And they're not going to be able to do that because the world is different. With the Ukraine, the uncertainty with China, etc., everybody is now nearshoring. They don't want to depend on very, distributed supply chains. So what is going to happen? One day if the Fed says, no, we're going to raise our target from 2 to 3, the world will fall apart. The markets, whatever credibility it has will be shot. So I mean, it's looking good right now, but I really don't know. I think we might have another big crisis coming. So, I mean, there's also all this other stuff, right? There's Ukraine, which is just heartbreaking, but it also has horrifying costs everywhere. There is, China is China, right? Somehow they are, it's amazing. Nobody knows what's going on there. But I will say one thing about China that I've been thinking for some time, Now, if you have an adversary, whoever they are, right? And if you have nothing, if you can't see anything good about them, not a single thing, you're doomed to failure. And the whole world looks at China, at least in the US, India also, looks at China, there's nothing good about it. Look at that, look at this, look at it. But I'm saying, I'm not making a case, but I'm saying everyone has something good about it. And we need to really focus on that if he is your biggest player, your biggest trading partner. And so again, the whole China story basically leads to more instability, more volatility. Another just small, but it might be quite significant. Japan, after 25 years of low inflation, is suddenly seeing inflation rise. So it seems to me inflation is there. So US interest rates are going to be higher than people think. Certainly higher than the market thinks. So, which is why, as I said, there might well be one more big drop coming in. One of the biggest problem about 2008 is, I think this was about 2.5 years tenor. it took 4 or 5 years for the index to come back to the starting point. You know, so even if it falls, doesn't fall anymore, but it sits at this level of 4 or 5 years, nobody's going to be happy, right? I mean, it's going to be hard to make money in that environment. So, you know, let me just move to sort of my supposed area of expertise, which is foreign exchange. Can you give me the next slide, please? So where is the rupee going to go, right? I'm asked this all the time, and for the last 15 years, I have the same answer. I don't know. And nobody knows, right? I used to be on TV a lot, you know, CNBC, etc., etc. They don't call me anymore because what they want to know is what's going to happen. And I can only tell them, I don't know. I don't know. You know, how can you possibly know? I mean, there's people who talk, but they don't know. But still, and you know what, I always say there's no point wasting time talking about the rupee. The only time to talk about it is if you're in the evening having a drink, have a few drinks, you can talk about all the factors. But no drinks today, but I'll talk a little bit about the factors. You know, that's, see, I must say one thing. After I've been looking at this morning, when I said knowledge without character, I was pointing at the regulators. I've really come to respect the RBI governor. Because he, I guess the whole team, but he has done a very good job over the last 3 or 4 years, you know. Now, every time you read reports, they're talking about the current account deficit, exports are down, global growth is down, current account deficit is growing, you know. And he's always saying, I will manage it. Which is, and I'm beginning to trust him, you know. Even though, you know, what moves the rupee, when if there's any drama, like I showed you in the previous slide, if the US markets fall out of bed, there's going to be a huge wave coming against the rupee. But he says, I can manage it, you know. So more power to him. I hope he's successful. But one of the other things that I realized, you know, I had a very close friend from the US. I used to live in the US, visiting recently. And we were chit-chatting, and he's from New York, and so he loves Bombay. And on Bombay, he just walks around. So one evening he was telling me, you know, I bought a banana today on the street for 5 rupees. 10 days ago, I had bought a banana at JFK before I was coming here. It was $2.50. Now we know at the airport prices are high, so let's say 5 times, right? So that would mean 50 cents is 5 rupees. I mean, the rupee is so undervalued, right? In fact, recently the Economist has this clever thing, right? The Big Mac index. And recently it came out that the rupee is one of the most undervalued currencies in the world. So if it's, you know, RBI tries, you know, I guess they've got, I don't know how they're managing the game, but they don't want it to get too strong, you know, no, they don't want to get too weak because it's undervalued. But by the same token, they are also preventing it from getting too strong, you know. Now, ultimately markets run on sentiment. Now, the only 2 things that I would say that could ever get to a point where sentiment moves towards a stronger rupee is, you know, there's been this talk about the global bond indices. India getting sort of, now that would have happened, you would see a lot of billions of dollars coming. But another point which is quite interesting to me, which has to do with inflation. For years, Indian inflation was 4 or 5% higher than in the West. And investors said, हाँ भाई 3-4 टका तो गिरने ही वाला है, just to balance that. Now, could we be going into a place, and more power again to RBI, where our inflation is not lower than overseas? Now, if that happens, then everyone may have to change their thinking, and maybe the rupee can strengthen. I mean, certainly from buying bananas, it should be stronger, you know. So that's really what I wanted to say, but I do want to close on one more note. If you give me the last slide, please. It's just to finish Gandhiji's 4 other sins. I don't always, I'm not sure I agree with all of that, but since I started, I wanted to close with that. So these are his other 4. Wealth without work. Now, to my mind, that again has a very important echo in things you're hearing in fiscal policy, talking about, taxation of assets, inheritance tax, things like that. Now, a lot of people get completely horrified by that, but I think we need to think about it. I mean, there is some depth to what this lovely gentleman was thinking, hundreds of years ago. Science without humanity. You don't talk to any environmentalist or serious environmentalist, and they will, the science that is being presented is often fake, right? So science without humanity is again something that I think is very contemporary and necessary. The other two, frankly, I don't understand. Pleasure without conscience and religion without sacrifice, I don't know. But that's, I'd like to close with one of the first things I said. I still don't understand why Gandhiji did the all ulta. Why not say wealth with work is a good thing, rather than saying wealth without work is a sin. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your interesting take on globalization. It was very insightful. Moving forward, I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Prince Augustine, founder and CEO of Behavior Insights and Transformation Partners LLP, who will speak on the mental modeling for a better world to live in. He is a former executive vice president of Group Human Capital and Leadership Development of the Mahindra Group. He is the winner of late Rajan Ghosh Memorial Award at Symbiosis Institute of Business Management in Pune. In addition to being awarded as Alumnus of the Year in 2011 at SIBM and Lifetime Achievement Award for contribution in the field of HR. Dr. Prince set up and industrialized coaching as an employee development intervention across the Mahindra Group in various parts of the world through reflective conversation and an ICF approved coaching program called Mahindra Certified Reflective Conversations. Over to you, sir.
Good morning. After two illustrious speakers, it's quite a difficult task. Because, so you rightly pointed out, India has to reap the demographic dividend it has got. In fact, skilling is a very big thing, and it's what the government is now really focusing upon, the National Skills Academy. In fact, I worked very closely when I was with the Mahindra Group, with the government of India, in setting up the skills academies and supporting them, and because that's a future, right? And if India has to really be one amongst the top 3 economies, skilling is a great priority that has to be given. And so you rightly pointed out that conscience is what this world is missing. So Gandhiji, he probably realized, so there is something called as the concept of growth mindset. I can look at the same thing negatively, or I can look at the same thing positively, right? If you really want progress, if you really want convergence, if you really want collaboration, right, we have to learn to appreciate each other, right? We have got to look at what strengths do we bring in to the table, right? But that part is totally gone. Now, one part of the worldview was that how do we bring conscience? That's where religion played a very, very crucial role, right? But today religion has become, so you have put, I didn't get that, religion without sacrifice. Religion without sacrifice. If you look at most of the religions actually speak of giving more and taking less. But today, everybody in the world is actually working, what can I take more and give less? Right? And that's exactly what the crisis is all about. So first, right? So what exactly are the forces I was just reflecting, when Dr. Asha got in touch with me. Okay, what is it, this thing? So then I realized at one time that the world was totally different. No? Each one was working, it was totally decoupled world. Right? And you rightly pointed out, sir, how the coupling really happened. Right? And today, we have actually, whilst we reap the benefits of globalization, there was a seamless flow of technology which happened. Right? There's a seamless flow of commerce that happened. There was a lot of sharing, which part will never go away. Right? But what has happened is politicians without conscience and running the world without conscience is actually making it a very hybrid world. Like, nobody realizes what Putin wants. Okay. America never realizes, the West never realizes what the other part of the world wants. If you look at the whole crisis which has happened, right? The West wants to sell its armory, right? Putin wants to protect his territory, yeah, because that is where the whole thing is. And the Cold War, which actually came down after the Perestroika, right, became indirect. Now it's more or less direct. It is nothing but a war between Russia and America. Both are, Putin is paid it direct, Americans are paid it indirect, and Zelensky became a victim. Right? But in all this thing, who is the person who is suffering? Zelensky is having a comfortable life. What he is showing is not what the real thing is. Right? He is going around, he is this thing. Biden is having this thing. America is living a great this thing. So is Britain, so is France. Their economies are moving. What is it? The armory that they are supplying to Ukraine. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just had a major surgery. Sometimes 1 year back I had undergone a transplant. So sometimes I just have a little bit of catching my words, and I've come back to normalcy now. So I was looking at it. Common people like us are the real sufferers of the hegemony of global leaders. Okay, so I was therefore looking at that. The world needs to have a new order. If you do not have a new order, there is no way. So it has to be religion with sacrifice, and therefore there has to be a new way of working, right? And all these things, what I have this thing, I'm not going to speak about demographics because that has already been spoken about, right? The customers are actually making the real thing. Cost saving, what actually drove it? America realized that the developing countries are the place where they can actually do cost leverage. Therefore, they outsourced everything to countries like India, Vietnam, right, and several other things. And then Trump came in and he realized that rest of the world is progressing at the cost of America, right? So he then pulled his buttons, right? And then now the new regulation, they realized that China is becoming stronger because in Mahindra's we had a lot of business in China. Whilst Chinese are good, right? What you call is conscience, that does not exist there to a large extent. They will take away your intellectual property. Right? So all the global economies have gone there, right? So if you look in terms of protecting your intellectual property, China is not a place for you. Right? So you have to learn how you can leverage China. Right? So when we were setting up our tractor plant in China, right? So we said, how can we really collaborate? Right? But we found that collaboration is not a very easy thing. It does not exist. They will work within themselves. So they are a very closed economy to a very large extent. Right? And they picked up a lot of things from rest of the world. Right? So different demographies operate in different this thing. So the developing countries are at the cost of developed countries. Right? So unless the developing countries do not build capability, do not build their own intellectual property, right? The entire revenue, the whole world is actually managed by about 8 to 10 corporations, and all those corporations exist in the US. And the real intellectual property exists with them. So unless countries like India do not develop their own intellectual property, and you become global, and which is to a large extent which is happening, right? The Indian superpowers are actually going and acquiring assets globally. What type of assets are the thing? Assets which they don't want, right? Which has become really sick, right? Now, is that your real intellectual property? Right? At one point of time, India had, if you look at the silk trade, etc., India had its own intellectual property. So if you have got to reverse the whole this thing, you will have to find ways in terms of innovation. Innovation is the only way. Therefore, that's one thing I realized, that if you have got to differentiate yourself, then you need to have a new mindset, right? And that comes from deep inside, which is called curiosity. Right, like I can share with you the bullet train. The Japanese had created the bullet train, right? And it was a brilliant thing, you know. So when the bullet train was designed, the face was flat, right? And when it used to go in the tunnels, it used to make a big booming noise. And people said we should stop bullet train, right? And the entire engineering team really worked and said, how can we they really found no solution to make it really happen. The head of engineering was a person who was a very nature curious person. So he said that if I've got to solve this problem, then I've got to think very differently. Therefore, he said, if this problem has to be resolved, first the booming noise, the front of the bullet train has to be redesigned. So then he observed the kingfisher, right? So kingfisher, what it does is that the coefficient of drag is the least when the kingfisher actually flows from top and goes down and picks up a fish, and the sound does not really come up. They said, therefore, let's re-engineer the whole thing. Then they looked at the penguin at the hull of the bullet train. Then they looked at the thing that connects the to a eagle, right? And this is the re-engineered, and that's why we have the bullet train, right? So therefore, curiosity, I realized, is a very, very powerful thing, right? And what Gandhiji was speaking is actually about purpose, right? So what happens is, if you do not know where you're going, then you can go anywhere you want to go, right? So therefore, purpose becomes, why are we existing in this world? What difference will I make? Right? Therefore, one of the big things which I find with youngsters is that they are very cost motivated. That is one of the traits, that I have. Because I'm a behavioral specialist, right? So I will look at what traits can I build in youngsters which will help them to create that difference. Right? And corporates have realized it, right? And therefore, they have actually reinvented, right? And this is what is actually happening. The current business trends, right? So everybody across the world is actually trying to experience each other, right? So, but the form of experience that you create has to be very, very different, right? So it has to be an experience by which I give you what you don't have, and I take from you what I don't have, right? And if this can happen, like if America is very good, like when it came to the pandemic, right? So you had the vaccine. India was the only country which actually gave, and all the rich countries were actually holding. Right? And that, though I am not a great fan of Modi, but I admire him in a very big way, right? Because the changes, people don't realize. Last 3, 4, 5 times, even though I don't I don't admire his secularism, but I admire his commercial sense. See the way he has positioned India in the global market, right? We were actually following everybody across the world. Today, all global leaders are following him, right? So there is something in him which is really creating the charisma. And you see how political leaders, so it is politics without conscience, right? Exactly what is happening, right? And if this order exists, there is no way that we can really this thing. I was reading most of the things which politicians speak, they don't admire, right? So it is always, even when Gandhiji, he put the negative things in the front, right? So that has got ingrained in our way of thinking. So even when BJP was not in power, they were not appreciating Congress. When Congress is not in power, they are not appreciating, right? So unless we don't change this political scenario, there is no way that we can this thing. Therefore, the concept of social responsibility and socialism, right, is really, therefore ESG, right, which is environment, right, which again is a very conscious. The whole world, pleasure without conscience. So we go on a holiday and we spoil the world, right? We lead a very luxurious life and we spoil the world, right? It is whatever is happening to the economy is the cost of prosperity. So it is we have not looked at what we want to give back to the generations, right? And it is this way of living which has actually created this whole. It was not so before. Therefore, this is what is the current this thing. So can I have the next slide? Yeah. So this is what therefore is happening in the new world, right? Where if you look at it, speed, the speed at which things are changing at a very, very fast pace. Earlier, we could have taken 1 year to develop a particular skill. But now, in moments, you should be able to really, if you look at the IT industry, right, people, if they do not skill themselves, they will become obsolete very fast. This is what is happening. We must pick up 3-4 skills. Like why China is standing. We wanted to set up an R&D center in China, right? Because of IP, we didn't set up. So, but I realized that our turnover in the factory was very high. So the Chinese are very sensitive people, right? So, and they are multi-skilled. So the guy moves from manufacturing and he goes to R&D. And from R&D, he finds that if he is not treated very well, he goes and works in sales. And from sales, he will come back to manufacturing. So they are very dexterous, right? So multi-dexterity is something that they have learned. Therefore, whatever be the adversity, they will come out, right? So therefore, that's a mindset which they have developed, and they are very curious. They know what is happening across. For the same product, like when I went to China, I went to the market. I found that you've got products which are very cheap, right? A Rado watch you will get at 100 rupees, and you will get the same Rado watch at a lakh of rupees equivalent. So there is a quality difference. So they also know, okay, they cater to different segments. Right? So now and they are very curious. They observe what is happening around the world, right? And they quickly adapt and this, which nobody is able to do. So they are the first ones who went and invested in Sri Lanka, invested in this thing. If you look at all the mines in Australia, or if you look at lands in Africa, etc., they have gone and picked up. They will go invest.
Even Bolivia.
Even Bolivia. Exactly. Pardon?
Lithium.
They got the biggest storage of lithium in this thing. So before the world can change, like I will tell you, small thing, fuel tank. Right? I went to the factory in China. That guy, it's a small factory, maybe twice this, 80% of the global market is with him. So he has got facilities around the world, but technology, everything is there. No, that's a scale, and they realize, and he brings the cost down significantly, and everything they have got in terms of this. Therefore, I don't think we should oppose the Chinese. Okay? How can you really work with them? Okay? But the mindset is, we have actually picked up the entire technology in India. Many of the costs have come down by actually getting into China sourcing. Right now, the world is realizing that what they don't have is ethics. Therefore, ethics is becoming a very big thing. Therefore, conscience is coming back, sir. Right? Because conscience is coming back because we realize, because lack of conscience, we have actually depleted everything in this world. Right? So therefore, India has got a great opportunity of, if you put our ESG in place, which is environment, social and governance, right? The inequity in India is going up significantly very high. I can tell you, in 2000, right? If you look at many of our salaries here, right? It has gone up 25 to 30 times. But you look at a workman's salary. A workman's salary has not gone up to that extent. I was city of Mumbai. You know, all of us are leading a very comfortable life because of nearly 5 lakh contract labor who are sweeping the streets. How much do they get? They get less than minimum wages. And what does our government do? What does our trade unions do? In fact, I wanted to improve the law. I said, there is a way by which we have got to improve the minimum wages. Industrialists are quite open. But I realized that when I started working, employers was a big cause of this thing, right? Employees are willing to give their best, right? But the trade union philosophy, right? I do not know how progressive they are, right? So many changes. Actually, the contract labor is propagated by trade unions in a very big way because they control them. The organized labor does not want trade unionism at all, right? So when we engage our maid servants, right? Do we look in terms? I'm just telling we have to practice what we preach. Right? I have a performance pay with my driver. Right? I tell him, the guy does not clean my car. So I tell him your base salary is only 20%. Right? I'll give you 40,000-50,000. I have no problem. I told him. Right? But my car has to be clean every day. Every accident that you hit, it will get cut from your this thing. At the end of the year, if you do everything is good, 50% of your salary will be paid to you back. So guy works. I have a very good driver. Right? I said, okay. He wants a house. I said, I'll give you a housing loan. I said, you should have a house. Right? Our maid servants also. Right? My philosophy is always pay more than what the market pays. Right? But how many of us really look at, in the pandemic, right? Not many people, right? Mahindra, I found many Mahindra, we didn't terminate anybody. Right? If you look at the layoffs that is happening, is it conscious capitalism that is operating across the world? Right? There is a movement that Satya Nadella, etc. should actually give up their jobs because it is the philosophy with which, I don't know whether it is right, but corporates make huge profits. Right? But can they really protect? In fact, in 2008, when there was a big crisis, in Mahindra we never resorted to any layoffs and all those things. So we had a belief that when it is night, definitely there will be a day. Right? So therefore we said, can we protect them? Well, they will find it very difficult. We don't realize what is the, what I would call it is, it's an economic death. When you terminate a person, when you lay off a person, it's an economic death to this thing. Some people, they leave on hands and mouth, But people don't realize it. India as a country, right, does not have a fallback. But if you look at rest of the world, you take US, if a person loses a job for a period of 1 or 2 years, he is fully supported. By the time the economy improves and the person comes back. Right? If you look at Australia, the taxation is so high that a driver and the boss will sit together in the same car. Right? Which do you see you don't see that happening because the taxation rate is pretty high and the poor are taxed less, the rich are taxed more. Right? And therefore there is this thing. Therefore the economic philosophy, right, with which as prosperity goes up in India, 10 to 15% of the people actually occupy the full wealth of the country. Right? 70% of the people who are working are somewhere around the minimum wages. See, so unless you don't bring money in the hands of, this is what exactly what Modi wants to do. Unfortunately, he has got a 10% of the bureaucracy that support him, 80% of the bureaucracy that pull him down. All our government institutions are monolithics. Like I tell you, my own, after I retired, my pension, I worked in 4 organizations. These guys have no idea at all where it moves. I filed a consumer complaint, and the lawyer of the government is calling and threatening my lawyer. I said nothing to you, it's a small amount, 6,000 rupees. I said it makes no difference for me. Right? But I will, as a matter of principle, I will not give it up. Therefore, I filed a consumer complaint again. But when I was working, the guys used to, whether they make any change, etc., which is there, So therefore, our bureaucracy has to change in a very big way, which is there. And hence, I was looking the context of this. Next first thing. This is it. How does the world really exist? Right? You will find it because you will do research. There are several types of research about the world. Major part of the research is that Christianity is one part, like Christianity, Muslims, which has actually created one part of the thinking, because the common this thing is that, and then you have got Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. Right, and then is the other part of the world, right? But religion, unfortunately, the sacrifice part of religion has gone up. The opportunist part of religion is what is the thing. We believe in God only when there's a crisis. We do not believe in God when things are going very well. Right? Unfortunately, that is, even I realized it. My thinking on God went more when I was really in a crisis 1 year back. Okay? So, if we have God in our way of thinking and in the way of life, right, then it will be religion with so what Gandhiji said is, he's a person with great beliefs and thinking. So this is what I find most important thing is, if you look at Marxist as a philosophy, right? Why is it based? Primarily because of the inequity which is existing, right? So one view of the world is that we must have equity, but what is really governing is tech, right? Everything is getting automated, and that's where skilling becomes very important. 50% of the jobs will get automated, right? And what will happen? So that is why Netflix, this online entertainment will go up in the entertainment industry is projected to, that's the fastest growing industry. And I was looking what skills will really emerge in the future. One skill which is coming is in terms of hospitality, like doctors, nurses, right? Then next is entertainment. So therefore, holiday specialist, right? Is a category which will grow up in a very big way. When it comes to human resources, it is people who can understand minds of people. Right? Economists have a very big this thing, because as globalization happens, as businesses really grow up, right? Economic realities is what organizations, therefore risk becomes very, so you have your team and people who work on risks, right? And people with the economics background are the ones who can do risk related work in a much better way, because their worldview is much better. So let's go to the next slide. And therefore, there are many mental models that have evolved. How these mental models, I'm not getting because of lack of time, right? Many of these mental models have evolved to actually solve problems that existed at every point of time, right? And all these mental models actually work and are used in our day-to-day working in some form or the other. But these mental models may not be sufficient to solve the problems that we are going to face in the future, right? So therefore, I was looking, what is the new mental model? Like if you look at it, religion without sacrifice, because we are becoming more selfish. It is because we do not know, we are very inward driven, right? If we have to be outward driven, then we need to have our reason for existence. if our reason for existence is to amass our own wealth, is to make life comfortable only for us, right, then are we living the purpose? Right? Now everybody, all of us have a reason that we have come into this world for. There is a reason why organizations exist. There is a reason why institutions exist. Right? So therefore, if we are able to understand the purpose of our existence, then collaboration would be much better. We will not have, suppose, see, Putin can have the world the way he wanted it. America can have the world they wanted it. So also Europe. Right? But are they really looking at how they can make themselves comfortable? Right? They have found one victim, right? And everybody is funding him. Right? And this guy is getting more belligerent. Right? But he does not realize that beyond a particular point, even the rubber band will break. You can stretch it to a limited extent. You know? So therefore, right, I realized that purpose is a new trend which is coming in. Everybody is speaking. Like even all religious discourses that I'm seeing that the need for invoking your purpose, right, is becoming a very, very important thing. Therefore, I said, what is the new mental model? So I called it as the P-catch model. Okay, so what does P stand for? Right? Therefore, P, can you have the next one? Next slide. Yeah. So I put the image of a peacock, right? Because when you see a peacock, the peacock will not dance. The peacock will really dance when the environment is really suitable. That if you want to make an environment where there is joy, where there is happiness, where there is fulfillment, right? And I said the world needs to embrace this new, which is called PCAT, where P stands for purpose. Now, if you have to be purpose driven, there is a trait in us which is cost motivation, right? We need to have that and we need to invoke that, right? Now, what does C stand for? C stands for curiosity, right? Now, if we have got to be different, right, we have got to start observing things, right? And it's our choices that determine what we will be. So we can make a choice. We can make a choice to be happy. We can make a choice to be unhappy. Right? But if you are very curious, like if you are looking at this thing that India can change in a particular way, and therefore I see other economies of the world, and therefore they have done this, right? And hence I need to really make up a difference which is there. Then things will be very, very, very different. You know, like if you look at all inventions in the world, right? Apple has fallen on everybody's head, right? But nobody could think unless Newton has sat under Apple and he thought very differently, you know, right? Therefore, it is there in each of us. Similarly, if you take Archimedes, all of us sit in the tub and have this thing. But one day Archimedes discovered this, you know. So therefore, every day in life, what is it that? So you know, I can tell you that I did this experiment in our Mahindra plants, you know. So my PhD is on how do I really connect and engage the lower strata of the society, you know, which is the workmen. Who are basically 8th standard, 10th standard, right? So we said let's create a thing called invoking curiosity, right? And I tell you, they made all the engineers. In fact, we had to pay a price. One workman, he patented. He came out with a patent that diesel does not get wasted. We're not getting into technicality. So everybody laughed at it, right? And they said, no, this guy is useless. This thing. So he went and patented it, and he sent a notice to Microbosch. We have this thing, the workman patents, you know, we have got it. He sent a notice to Microbosch, and Microbosch production would have come to a halt. He said that if you don't give me on every piece of filter that you sell, right, you have to give me X percentage. Otherwise, I will stop your this thing. So the guy came, Microbosch came running to me, you know. Yeah. So I said, you are laughed at him. Right, now he has got a thing which is working. Right, about logistics cost. The workman came up with solutions. So a workman, through his own ideas, earns about 2 lakhs of rupees every quarter. That an average earning of a workman ideas is about 50,000-60,000 rupees they get. Right? Therefore, if you put the right system in place, etc., curiosity can be invoked. Therefore, that becomes very important. Next is AT. AT stands for, see, agility is very important. The way you think, right? The way you work, your response level has to be, and it has to be connected with technology. We cannot be devoid of technology. Technology has become a part of our life. Right? So everything will get automated. Right? So there is one person who is, I'm talking to somebody in the United States. He has developed a garment, right, which will tell you everything. You don't have to, they will tell you what is your blood pressure, it will tell you what is your temperature, it will tell you, right? And he's finding a way to actually, now if that really comes up, right, then you will not go to a hospital for checking everything. So that is the way things are. Therefore, agile technology, right? Therefore, how can you, and this is where collaboration is required. People of all this thing. So when we set up the Mahindra leadership, this is an idea that I came up with. I said, we are such a large group, why don't we this thing? And we said, and that's how the Finance Academy, Partha and this thing. I said, we had a technology, we had a manufacturing, we had a just create the whole thing and create an industry academy of collaboration. Right? And you see how it can really result in this thing. Right? And therefore, CH, which is holistic collaboration. Now, if you look at global economies actually look at holistic collaboration. In fact, United Nations is the cause of all problems in this world. Sorry, I'm just telling you. You need to have a new world order, which is that is fully governed and funded by US. Why should US fund alone a thing? Right? And 8 nations, why should they control everything which is there? Why not the other this thing? Russia has got 85% of the countries. It's only a few countries, only 15% of the world are actually supporting the Western this thing which is there. Right? Despite all sanctions, Russia is going very well. See, India is a very neutral country. They are collaborating both with Russians and Americans. Right? And if you have got to have this thing. Therefore, I say that PCatch is the new mental model that has to really work, which is purpose, curiosity-based choices. Right? Because I can make a hell of heaven or heaven of hell. But if I have to make heaven every day, then I've got to make choices which will help me to create heaven. Right? And therefore, and agility is there. I remember that Excel. It came in the computer first came in 1984, right? And I had to work for the entire cement industry when I was working in ACC. So we realized that we had a mark, we had to control, we would get all the industry together. And that's when Excel came. It took me 1 year to learn, right? And there was no pressure. I have to calculate this. It took me 1 year to sit and calculate everybody's wages, and everybody accepted it. But today nobody will accept it, right? You have got to learn all the things very well. I was asking our software professionals. We asked him how many languages do you know? There are so many. So he said, I know only 3 languages. But if I have got any other language, in 1 hour I'll pick it up. Right? And therefore I am very agile. And hence company needs me more than what. Company needs me more than I need the company. Right? So minute you change the equation. Right? So what you are telling is that you move from dependence to interdependence. Right? That is where holistic collaboration becomes very, very distinct, for which you will have to work. Now if this is the whole thing which is evolving, right? What happens to youngsters like you? Right? So what is the future of skills? So how does the skills really evolve? Right? Skills evolves into this thing. Thinking is becoming very important. Therefore, the mind becomes very, very significant. Right? So conscience also has got an important role to play. Right? So it is the intersection of these two which will actually create skills of the future. Therefore, if you look at it, adaptive agility. Right? Now, in adaptive agility, you need high interpersonal and you need high cognitive. Both these skills are required. are required, because you have to be agile to adapt to changes which is taking place, right? Next is in terms of multi-presence, which means I should be able to pick up multiple functions, multiple concepts, because whenever I work, like if I take that I am an economist, right? I should also know about finance. I should also know about manufacturing. I should also know about politics, right? I should also know about how technology is really working, how I can really make use of it, etc. Because it will compress your scope of work, etc. Right? And it is those type of people who will really succeed in the future, right? So therefore, I was thinking, has the world become very complex? Has it been so in the past? Right? So then, last slide, I was just looking what Charles Dickens had said. Right? So it was several years back. So he says it is best of times and worst of times. All of us are having a good life over here, right, in India, but think of what is happening in Ukraine. Right? Look at the way it is devastated. Right? People don't have, nobody cares about it. Right? And what are they doing? The West is funding everybody. Therefore, the conscience is totally gone. Right? So it is best of times and worst of times. It is age of wisdom and age of foolishness. Both exist today. It is epoch of belief and epoch of incredulity. There is belief and disbelief. Both exist at the same time. Right? The season of light and season of darkness. It's a spring of hope and it's a winter of despair. We have everything before us and we have nothing before us. Right? So, what Charles Dickens said exactly we will do this thing. So, as we advance, right, we will find that life, our way of life, way of thinking would more or less be the same, but with some minor this thing. That is a contrast of life. So therefore, we have to constantly evolve, right? And therefore, I say that maybe for the next 4 to 5 years, I see PCatch as a new mental model that will really prevail, right? And that is what everybody is speaking about, right? Any religious discourse, any global leader, right? Even that is what Sir was invoking, right? And this is what my great friend has put in place, right? The Gandhian philosophy, right? We would not have, India is, I think, one amongst the few countries in the world which has got independence without bloodshed, right? Because you have got to create a movement, and I strongly believe that if the world has to change, there has to be a strong movement of humanity. It is youngsters like you who can really make that big difference, right? So, thank you, ma'am, for organizing and inviting me. Right? This is the second talk that I am doing after 4 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your groundbreaking insights. We'll now be moving on. Next up, we invite Mr. Nand Mohan Shenoy, CEO at Bestfit Business Solutions Private Limited, Mumbai, who will be speaking on cybersecurity need of the hour. Nand Mohan Shenoy is a seasoned banking and information security professional with more than 30 years of experience in the entire banking and financial services and insurance segment, with deep understanding of business, operations, technology, and information security. Before venturing out as an entrepreneur in 2007 to start his own venture, Bestfit Business Solutions Private Limited, he has held leadership positions in 3 different banks across multiple verticals like operations, information technology in the following banks: BNP Paribas India, Global Trust Bank, and Bharat Overseas Bank. In addition to the professional qualifications mentioned above, he holds a postgraduate diploma in industrial relations and personnel management, as well as EDP and computer management. He is one of the few National Institute of Security markets for the various financial products related training. We would like you to take over, sir.
Thank you. Now may I have the slides, please?
Slide.
Slides.
इधर है.
Okay. Let's start with the ready? Okay. In the meantime, the subject is security, cyber security is the need of the hour. So by the time the slide comes up, what is it related to economy? The topic is globalization, economy, and this is purely out of the context. Do you agree with me or do you disagree with me?
It's connected with economics.
Why?
It's simple because when we talk that economics is also connected to the financial status because that helps us to know, how our GDP is growing. And if tomorrow we see that more of cyber criminals come and attack our systems,
Okay.
okay? So there is a connection between it. If you're not bothered,
Okay. Good.
things are going to
This
go
is a
by
close
your-
interrelation between cyber security and economics, which many of us miss. And cyber security is a topic for technical things. I should compliment Asha to bring this thought process. In every economic session, you should have one session on cyber security. And for her, I do not know whether she has borrowed the concept. Next slide, please. From the World Economic Forum.
I have not copied.
Huh?
It is my thought only.
Okay, they have copied your thought. Okay, fine. So when we talk about Davos, World Economic Forum, year on year, the most important topic, if you look at the global risk report, urge all of you to please watch this. As somebody said, multi-skill. Okay, as I always say, as all young students, we all focus, we are very compartmentalized, we think like a horse. Economics, economics, economics. You have to always think out of the box. That is what our friend Kishore Biyani says. We should be all jack of all trades, master of some. Okay, earlier it was jack of all trades, master of none. Now it has become jack of all trades, master of some. So it's very important as students. I always tell whenever I address the students, you have to always think out of the box. Don't be like a horse. Okay, the world has changed. The world order has changed. So if you look at it, even at the World Economic Forum, this is the 18th edition. The top 10 risks, cyber attacks on infrastructure is a key concern. So the world,
T skilling.
yes,
T
technology.
T is deep skill and horizontal.
Okay, T skills. Okay, so if you look at the economic risk categories, they are given economic, environmental, etc. So cyber security is the most important thing. The next one, please think and pause. We all talk about 2 minutes Maggi noodles. So I tell about, think about 1 minute impact. To contrast with 2 minutes, you look at what the world order is doing. If you can see that, 28,000 Netflix subscribers watching in 1 single minute, 60 minutes rather, 60 seconds, which is equal to 1 minute. How many WhatsApps are going? 69 million WhatsApp per 60 seconds is what the world order is. And what type of buying is happening on Amazon and Flipkart? Very interesting. How much is it? US $1.6 million is spent online in 60 seconds. Now, does economics make sense?
Yes.
Please understand why the economics and cyber security, when somebody is buying $1.6 million is spent in 60 seconds, it definitely concerns us as an organization, as an individual. So this is the business sense. Look at the cyber security sense. How many emails are being sent? 197.6 million emails. And number of WhatsApp messages, very interesting. 59 million means 1 million WhatsApp message going. And I see every day people saying good morning, good night, good evening, everything. Okay, so we have got what is called an overdose of information. Earlier, even if you go to the 5-star hotel, I think it is ITC or something, even in the washroom there is a TV.
I don't know what purpose the TV was in the urinal it was. So we are all having overdose of information. The more the attack surface, it is a hacker's paradise. So when you look at the other side, how many ransomware attacks are happening in 60 minutes or 1 minute? 578 ransomware attacks per minute and 55,260 username and password attacks is what? It's a huge thing. So I'm giving you some things to think about. Okay, next slide please. So now, if you look at coming back to relate economics with this, so the recent summit in Davos in January, as all of you are aware, there was a very interesting article written in Forbes that 10 trillion case for decentralized cyber security. It is around 8.5% of the GDP of the world is going to go away. That is what is, sir said, wealth without work. I can connect all the 7 principles and what sir said also. So why this is happening is because the modern generation wants wealth without work. You are from Kerala, right? You know Malayalam. Okay, enna muriye pani eduttal. You heard that? If you work very hard, you can have your stomach full. There's a saying also like that. So, but the new generation is thinking about wealth without work. That mindset has to change. Okay, only I have to become CEO, CMO, whatever it is, make more money. There's a story of one person sitting in Juhu beach. Okay, he was enjoying the life, he was enjoying the sea. One fellow comes, one MBA, a young guy likes to go, sir, aap kya kar rahe ho? I'm enjoying this. Why are you doing this? No, you should do this. You should do this. Then goes on asking, then what? Then what? Then what? Finally you enjoy life. I'm already doing it.
But that may be our way. Ask them. They say we are working smart.
Correct. Correct.
So working hard.
Yes.
We are working smart.
So 8.5% of the economy's money is going with the few people, and it is wealth without work. The next slide. Okay. Now, as we see about globalization, one way we talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One way our principle is what? Divide and rule. Apparent contrast of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is what? Divide and rule. When you talk about warfare, you talk about First World War, you talk about Second World War, we know what the mini world war which is happening in Russia and Ukraine. And that warfare, more than the weapons, is going to be fought with cyber warfare. And this is a report from Microsoft Defense Report. So some of the reports you can read is one of the things I gave you is this. Second is the Microsoft Defense Report which comes every October. So it gives you the latest trends of what is happening. You see here, Russia is attacking the top 5 countries, Russia, China, Iran and North Korea. And what is the target? Please look at it and tell me who is the target, common target. Huh? US. Everywhere the target is only US, Iran. See, India is there. 5% of the attacks which are generated is targeted on India by Iran. So this is what the data which is collected through the sensors. Please understand there is a lot of difference in economic research data and live data. So there is something called sensors which we have kept, firewalls and SOC report. There are a lot of devices. This data is not survey data. This is real-time analysis collected from the various equipment and the sensors. So if this is only for Microsoft, like that we have got around 10-15 vendors. So if I consolidate that data across 10 organizations, you can get a disastrous picture. Okay, so this is the reality of the situation. Next slide. Okay, now why do we talk about there? We also have to talk about India story. So if you look at the India story, India also publishes what's called as the Indian ransomware report by an organization called CERTIN, where there are 51% is increase of this one. Okay, as sir said, inequality, gainfully employed. If people are not gainfully employed, it will not be Zindabad, Zindabad now. That is the old age economy. The new age economy is what? Hack, hack and hack. And everything is available as a service. Ransomware as a service. Okay, hacking as a service. So you can have SAS, PAS, RAS, AS, BLAS, go on adding as. You will get all sort of things as. Okay, so ransomware as a service, and that also is very good business model. You know, What's the business model for ransomware as a service? It is sharing model, revenue sharing. Ransomware as a service is a sharing model where the revenue can be shared. The more ransomware you get, you have to share it with the producer. You don't have to produce, you're only a middleman. You should know how to use the tools, end of story. Is it a very wealth without work? Correct? Otherwise you have to do coding. Here I don't have to do coding. Udhar se le lo, hack karo, paisa mila, aadha usko do. Okay, the story is totally changing with cloud. Okay, next. Next. Okay, now let us look at what are the hacks which I keep pressing it. In January, we had what is called as the AP Mahesh Cooperative. It is not any private story, this is all which has come in the newspapers. Okay, AP Mahesh Cooperative Bank lost 12 crores of money through RTGS and NEFT in just 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, that is what newspaper reports are telling. You may be thinking, how come in half an hour it has gone? It is not in half an hour. The work has started somewhere in September, October. Okay, there is something called phishing mail. All of you know what is phishing. Okay, so the phishing activity, the first this one, I was involved in this investigation, that's why I am sharing some of my experiences. The first mail came somewhere September, October 2021. Okay, so this is one in half an hour, 12 crores of money one bank has lost. What percent of the network you see? Next, in May, SpiceJet Airlines got stranded. All of you may not have read about it. Recently, what is it? Our Mumbai airport had a problem last 1.5 months back. Is anybody aware of it? Yes? No? Nobody reads newspaper. Okay, immediately I get, sir, in the National Airport Authority ka system hack ho gaya. Everything they think only hack. So why I am coming to is a mindset change. उधर hack भी नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. Disgruntled employee ने जाकर केबल काट करके घर चला गया. So we only think of external threat, external threat, external threat. Please think of internal threat also. That is what Mahabharata says. Vishwasat bhayam utpannam. The moment you have got faith, you start having the fear. So don't think always everything is cyber. It can also be an insider threat. That's a good example which happened recently. So SpiceJet, the next one. CDSL services down. That also was in news. It's a listed company, so as a part of governance, they have to give the notice to the BSC or wherever it is listed. So this is all published information. Okay, the next one. The last one, this is horrifying. What is this?
It's a audition medication.
Yes, you all heard about this AIMS attack. He said, got a bigger risk than your financial service. Paisa kiya to chalega. What happens to the people inside? Forget sensitive information. I will not be able to give him the medicine and the right dose if the computer is down. Think of that. Science without. नहीं साहब ने अभी बोला भूल गया. Yes, humanity sir. मैंने by heart कर दिया. So the what sir has told, all of you should read this book. Saint in the Boardroom. Please take. We all read nice books. Monk who sold his Ferrari. Okay. Similarly, there is one beautiful book which you saw. I read about that 7 deadly sins from that book. A Saint in the Boardroom. Okay, it's a very beautiful book. Okay, I would urge each one of you to read that book. So this is science without humanity. So ultimately, everything revolves around the theme what we said. Okay, so this is science without humanity. In US, as everybody is giving US example, मुझे भी थोड़ा US example देना पड़ेगा ना. Peer pressure. Okay, now what happens there is your intravenous this is given not by a nurse. इधर आप हॉस्पिटल में बैठ के बोलेगा नर्स को भागो 15 मिनट है ड्रिप कम हो गया come and put. There it is not like that. Everything is through computer. Ransomware attack happens. What happens to the drip? Gone. चलेगा अच्छे. Okay, that Amrita's advertisement in McDonald's. चलेगा अच्छे. Okay, that is it. So look at the impact it is going to create in the entire life of ours with cyber attacks. Next. Okay, this is a very interesting statistics. As those who are interested in research and statistics, please read this. This is a crime in India. Okay, there is a Parkinson's law. Delay is the deadliest form of denial. Okay, I'm happy at least the government gives us this statistics. 21 का statistics एक साल के बाद मिलता है. And where is technology? We're talking about technology and so many things. The National Crime Records Bureau comes out with a beautiful this one. So every year they publish this. This 2021 statistics came somewhere in September 2022. So in that it is around 900 or 1000 pages. But I only look at cybercrime. So states which recorded cybercrime, highest is what? Telangana. And we had 52,974 incidents. Mind you, this is only an FIR or a police complaint done. How many of you are doing the police complaint? 3x, 4x, 5x is left up to your imagination. 10x. So only that is being recorded and it is Telangana. And the cities which recorded the highest cybercrime is what? Bangalore. Okay. You will be surprised, sir. आप बोल रहे skilling. How many of you heard a place called Jamthara? There was a Netflix series also called Jamthara. Anybody has watched it?
Yes.
What education, sir? What knowledge, sir? Which MCA or which BCA he has done, sir? Nothing. But how he is able to do it? He should go there and do a site visit. Mobile range is very bad. So he climbs the tree and sits on the tree and does a call. Okay, please watch that if you have not watched it. So Jamtara was 2 years back reading. In 2019 or 18, Jamtara was leading. Now Bangalore is leading. Why? As sir said, people are not gainfully employed. COVID, पेट भरने का है, नौकरी नहीं मिल रहा है. These are some of the challenges why there is a paradigm shift in cybercrime towards cities from the remote villages. If you see the trend. Next.
It is prosperity-based crime.
It is prosperity-based crime. Okay, now we all talked about G20. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is all around Mumbai now. So by everybody, sapne mein bhi aayega abhi Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Okay, it is all around. So you will be surprised that G20 recently, this is 2 days back, on 1st of February, as a part of collaborative exercises, there is something called a cyber drill. So they have done a cyber drill across 12 countries. That is why I am telling you it is a need of the hour. And as I say, everywhere, other than cyber drill, I tell DR exercise. All of you heard about disaster recovery. Many of you are working. BCP drill karo, DR drill karo. Have you all experienced it or not? Yes? This is the same old story which my grandmother told me when I was in class 4. Okay, the tiger came. Or the wolf came. All of you remember that? So we do DR exercise every month. We run, exercise done, goes to report, goes to France. Fastest time of evacuating is 8 minutes, then it's. Okay, because we know it is a DR drill. And one fine morning the wolf comes, nothing will happen. Okay, so DR drill exercise is a wolf came story, as I always say. Okay, so this is what, and there are a lot of global cooperation like APWG, FIRST, AP, CERT and all. So as somebody said, collaboration is the way. Even in cyber security, collaboration has to work. Money laundering, collaboration. I always tell, earlier we talk about competition. Even with NGOs. I tell, competition is gone, let us collaborate. As a president of ISACA or Mumbai, all people are working in silos. Is it collaboration? Collaboration can bring in a lot of good things. So always don't think of competition now. You always think of collaboration. That is what the world order is moving towards. Next. Okay, this is elementary, my dear Watson. My favorite dialogue. Anybody knows where is it from? Not the French ones, because they are all old generation. We are all the same generation who have heard this. Where is it, elementary, my dear Watson? Famous dialogue from?
Sherlock Holmes.
How do you know, madam?
Watson.
How do you know?
Watson.
You watch the series. There is a series called what? We don't read. We only read. We never saw. Okay. So elementary, my dear Watson. Similarly, if you look at the entire cyber security and the root cause analysis, if you see even that Microsoft has given what is called as the 98 protection or the bell curve. Okay, you require cyber security is not rocket science. You don't require huge amount of investment. That is required only for the 2% of the bell curve. Now I will ask all of you in this room, how many of you have put two-factor authentication on your WhatsApp? Touch your heart and raise your hand. Now don't ask me what it is. Two-factor authentication on WhatsApp. Huh? Please do. Not even 10%. First step in cyber security. How many were locked your Aadhaar number? Not the biometrics, the Aadhaar number. Very good. Okay, biometrics. Locking biometrics is different from locking the Aadhaar number. They are two different things. Okay, so security starts at home. Charity begins at home. Cyber security begins at home. Basic thing, two-factor you don't put in Facebook, you don't put in Gmail, then what happens? Please understand, two-factor is the most important thing. So 98% of the protection is elementary, my dear Watson. Have some basic hygiene factors. Okay, next.
You say, I have my son. I get my son to do everything.
Okay, good. Good. Now, okay, how many of you heard about this? How many of you heard about this? Advertisement. On the financial services, you don't know what this advertisement is. सोचकर समझकर real advertisement. एक बार क्लिक कीजिए, एक ही बार क्लिक कीजिए. Which company has given this advertisement? आप लोग टीवी नहीं देखता है, CNBC नहीं देखता है. Which company has given this advertisement? सोचकर, समझकर, invest कर. Nobody. National Stock Exchange. NSE has given this. सोचकर, समझकर, invest कर. Don't go and buy penny stocks. Okay. I changed that paradigm for cyber security. What is it? Don't open. सोचकर, समझकर. Font is not working. Good. उधर से मैं PPT इधर दिया वो font नहीं है. What is the other word? सोचकर, समझकर. Click कर. Good. Open it. I think font has gone for a toss. Okay. Laptop change किया. वो font नहीं है उसमें. Okay. Good. तो सोचकर, समझकर, क्लिक कर, सोचकर, समझकर, शेयर कर. Okay, क्लिक कर, शेयर कर. और equally important. Okay, next. Now, as individuals, you should know this website and you should know this number. 1930. Even the bank people do not know. I was in one of the new breed of private sector banks for some work. I went, one person comes running. मेरा ये हो गया, FIR फाइल किया, 1.5 लाख रुपया गया, blah blah blah. And the lady is asking 100 questions. So I told him, sir, पहले 1930 डायल करो. Okay, 1930 is a beautiful site. Earlier, all banks used to talk in silos. I'm transferring money from bank A to bank B. With this new system called Citizen Financial Fraud Reporting System of government, they can even stop the other person from removing the money. The moment you call 1930, how many of you know this number? Only one person. 2 people. Okay, how do you know, madam? You are from cyber security only?
Yes, I am from IT and PhD in cyber security.
Okay, good. Okay. So 1930 you dial, you tell them these details, they will immediately give you a ticket number. Okay, based on the ticket number, you have to go to cybercrime.gov.in. Based on that ticket number, you give full details, you upload everything what is happening, and then the rest is taken care of. And between 1 year itself, you see 6 lakh complaints on that website. It's hardly 9 months. In 9 months, 6 lakh complaints, 1.1 complaints resolved with 188 crores recovered. Fraud money has been recovered. Clear? Okay, so there are a lot of things which is happening now. We should be aware, basic. Just like you know how to operate WhatsApp, you should also know how to report a crime. Not for you, for your friends or anybody. 1930. Does anybody know what is 1947? Toll-free number 1947? Nobody? Aadhaar. Very innovative way. 1947 number is for Aadhaar. So 19, see how government has done so many interesting things, how to recall 1930, 1947, etc. Okay, now, 100 koi nahi bolta. Yes, madam.
Just curious, how do you recover?
Which one? The other person is not able to withdraw. I am transferring money from X to Y. He may withdraw immediately or he may not withdraw.
But if he withdraws,
If he withdraws, you can't do anything. He'll go to the police and that's a workflow. That's a workflow. It automatically gets sent to the local police station. So many things happen at the back end. It's a one-stop shop. Okay, next.
But this may go in such a speed that you will not realize it also.
10 minutes, 15 minutes, we have people sitting in this room who knows what has happened.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell that.
We have the case, live case, no?
Okay, 10 minutes money has gone out also, I don't want to tell that. Okay, now, so I conclude this. How many of you attended my earlier seminar in 2021? Okay, then you should tell me, recall what is a gun. This is the only slide which is common between that and this. That's the only common slide I have put. Yes, madam, tell me what is this? Yaad nahi aa raha hai. So I want to conclude with a saying from Mahabharata. Okay, so this is what is a very famous thing which is called the conclusion which I told the board. Yaksha Prashna. Okay, that is also new generation. Don't think everything is Buddha ko kuch nahi malum tha. They write some damn thing and fill it up. That's all not rational, is what the modern generation thinks. But the wisdom which is there in our scriptures is much more than what MBA gives you. If you want to do MBA, similarly, if you go to IIM and all, they do classes, have classes on Mahabharata, Ramayana, etc. What you can learn from those scriptures. So I always, if I am not teaching cyber security, if I am not teaching blockchain, I will be spending my time teaching Sanskrit. So I got two hats, as you said, multidisciplinary. If I am not doing this, I will be doing that also. So I got another website. I am trying to do some marketing now. I got another website, a YouTube channel also, where I have got more than 150 videos on various how to learn Sanskrit, etc. So I always quote with this. Even when I go to the boardroom, I do a lot of awareness for the board. I always end with this. Okay. So in this, in the Yaksha Prashna, there is a question. There are around 42 or 45 questions used in the Mahabharata, where the Yaksha is asked, what is this, what is that, etc. So for you also it's very important. From your perspective, I'll tell. Okay, it asks, what is faster than the wind? What is the faster than the wind? Mind. Correct? Sitting here, you can go to Lhasa. We all went through US and came. Khacha bhi nahi kiya. Okay, mind is faster than the wind. Similarly, there is one question. Kim Ascharyam. What is wonder? The question there is Kim Ascharyam. Means what is wonder? So I'll first tell you Sanskrit. Usko andar jaane do. Then I will do the English translation. Kim Ascharyam. Ahani ahani. Bhutani. Gachanti Yamalayam. Ahani ahani means day in and day out. Bhutani means living creatures. Gachanti. Gachanti means goes. Kidhar jata hai? Yamalayam. It goes to the Yamas Loga. Sheshaha. The balance. What do they think? Sheshaha Sthavara Michanti. Shesha, I think we work in such a manner. As he said that we are immortal. We work or we think that we are immortal and we are going to live forever. That is how we behave. Similarly, when I go to the boardroom.
It's also the truth.
Correct.
It's also the truth.
Which one?
That we live forever.
Our heart goes stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating the funeral marches to the grave.
Beyond the grave.
Yes. That is what you said. Keynes also you quoted there. In the long term, what happens? We are all dead. I am quoting from your. Okay, it's like you cannot contradict your presentation.
I never said.
But okay, we put it down in the presentation. Similarly, when I talk to the people, what is wonder? Cyber attack happens on my right, it happens on my left, it happens with my friend, but I think my company nothing will happen. That is how the board and the management behaves. Thank you. Last slide, I think that's it. So what is wonder? This is it. So I have just left some thoughts for you. Over. Anything is there? I think one more slide is there. Final slide? Thank you. Thank you.
The attack has to happen.
Thank you so much, sir, for the interesting presentation. I would like to just add one thing that we are in I just read an article and I saw this that we are in the duration when UPI is contributing to 59% of our GDP. So at this time, cybersecurity is surely the need of that. So now we'll move forward. I would like to invite our next speaker, that is Captain Sunny Williams. He is the logistics professional with more than 27 years of experience in the industry, currently working as Senior Vice President with All Cargo Logistics Limited. A specialist of liner trade and container business, he served as a part of core management team for developing, establishing and running ICT businesses in India. He has been instrumental in developing and implementing various business policies, strategies and operational processes with major shipping lines. He has gained extensive technical and operational experience of real shipping by commanding merchant vessels in international waters. He holds LLM International Trade Law from North Umbria University, Master Mariner MCA, and IRDA Certified Marine Surveyor and Loss Assessor. He was a gold medalist in pre-sea deck cadet training program from International Maritime Institute, New Delhi, and won Chairman Prize for the best in management travel. We welcome you, sir.
Eminent speakers, guests, Dr. Ashta and KJ Somaya colleagues, people watching online, and my beloved students, a very good morning. Now we are in the afternoon, I think. Good afternoon. Yeah, after hearing such stalwarts, industry leaders, actually our Vice Chairman, Mr. Partha, was supposed to be here, and due to some late commitments, some urgent commitments, he couldn't come. So I'm the 12th man standing. So please forgive me for my, under preparations or, whatever I speak here, it will be purely out of experience. I've not prepared a presentation, right? So all the, after all the Gangulis and the Tendulkars and the Sehwags, this is Anil Kumble here standing. Right? So, till now, अभी तक हम लोग हस्तिनापुर में थे, where we were making all the strategies and all the policies. मैं आपको कुरुक्षेत्र में ले जाऊंगा, जहाँ पर you will see Arjun, a focused corporate, probably Duryodhan, adamant regulator, Karna, probably a committed soldier, and some Abhimanyus, who have half knowledge, don't know what to do after some time. So globalization, when I see, I will just narrate a small story. There is a high-end executive, Mr. Ram, who works for an MNC. That MNC is a global shared service center, works out of Mumbai. He lives somewhere in the upstate Mumbai residential locality. So today is his wife's birthday, and he has ordered tulips to wish her birthday in the morning. So 7 o'clock the bell rang, there's tulips are there. He gives to her wife, wishes her birthday, wife is so happy. Does a fantastic breakfast with his wife, drives his Mercedes to his office in BKC. Mercedes, this Mercedes probably made in a Chakan plant in Pune. Then has a meeting in the first half with the regional office in Singapore about the revenues, strategy, growth plan, because they have a meeting in the second half with the headquarters in Geneva, the company's headquarters over there. His Korean boss is very happy with his presentation, who has been appointed as an expat in this organization. They both go for the meeting with the headquarters in the second half, and all went well. The day has gone good. He took his boss for a dinner in a Korean restaurant in BKC, ordered his favorite dishes, finishes the day, drives back home. So this is globalization in its true sense, where we see people, product, and services having a cross-border trade. A tulip has come from Thailand. The company is giving shared services to Europe and US in financial and legal sector. Mercedes is produced in Chakan plant by foreign technology, foreign investment, Indian labor force. And an expat is put here, so people over the crossing border working here. So what are the two pillars of globalization? So when we talk about globalization, probably the speed at which these things cross over the border. So these are the
As I said, people, products, services, ideas, finance, capitals. And what is the other thing? Other thing is the law of land, regulations, which facilitate this. So these are the two factors which to kind of spearhead, power the globalization movement. As sir said, the globalization started probably 1929. So what is the need now to have this, revisit globalization? Why are we having a relook at this? So yes, after this COVID-19 has happened, the thought process of mankind has changed. The way we look at things has changed. You know, with the period of time, probably with the advancement of technology, the world is very closer now. Probably what 25, 30 years ago, you know, I remember I'm from Delhi. During my childhood, when we used to live in Center Delhi, and you know, some of our relatives were on the outskirts of Delhi. So the plan was made the previous day that tomorrow we have to go and visit our relatives there. So we have to catch so and so bus. It is only an hour frequency. If we miss that bus, we have to wait for another hour. Go there, probably reach just before lunch, have lunch, and leave probably by 4 or 5 o'clock, so that we are back home before dark. And everything was well planned. And you know, our parents used to be after us, please get ready in time, don't miss it. So this kind of preparation was there. And now today, you know what happens? I get up 3 o'clock in the morning, take 5 o'clock flight, go to Delhi, do my business, come back by 6 o'clock, I'm home for dinner. So this is what probably in context of India, probably same things are happening for Singapore and Dubai. So this is what globalization has done to us. Now, so when we are looking and revisiting the fact, you know, regarding this globalization, so what Corona has told us, COVID has told us, that supply chain management, logistics, is an integral part of any trade or globalization. It is the spirit in the body of globalization. If we revisit the same story, what I just told you in the beginning, suppose the flight got delayed. Tourist didn't arrive on time. He couldn't wish birthday to his wife the way he wanted to. When he started from home, because of the kind of work which is happening in Mumbai on roads, he got stuck in traffic. He couldn't reach in time for his meeting with regional headquarters, Singapore, regional office. So he tried to log on to the meeting from his phone. But because of the Vodafone network, God bless Vodafone now, he couldn't even do that. By the time he reached office, his Korean boss is so upset with him because he missed the meeting and now he's not prepared for the meeting with Switzerland, with the Geneva headquarters. And the days, you know, totally opposite what he was thinking, what he was planning, right? So in the end, what he does to pacify his boss, he says, "Come boss, let's go for a quick bite in the Korean restaurant." And by the grace of God, the Korean dishes were not available what he wanted to eat because the logistic supply of the restaurant failed. So the world can be totally different. So we don't actually appreciate the fact what shipping and logistics is doing in the background for this globalization, you know, without which probably all these numbers, all these stories, all these strategies are just stories. So when we look, you know, before COVID, everybody was planning, you know, we should cut down the cost. We should do just-in-time management of the goods. So our production line is running, probably just the raw material is arriving. But in COVID, what happened? People are left hand dry, the production line stopped because there was no raw material. So what people did? No, we can do some stocking. So the cost efficiency was put aside. First is we are looking for customer satisfaction. We are looking for delivery. You know, so we need to relook on the aspect of our supply chain. So what this globalization is doing, they are also allowing us to reach new shores, new borders, developing new markets, new shares of business, but it is at the same time increasing the competition and killing the local market. I don't know whether you guys remember there used to be big bazaars. We don't find it anymore, right? There used to be, when we were kids, it was always Chacha ki dukan. Next, just outside our society, and he exactly knew when the phone comes, what to send and how to send, how much to send. Right? So, things are evolving every day, and with this globalization, with this www, World Wide Web, everybody is so interconnected, we have to be sure what we are doing. We have to be sure what we are allowing things to come inside, what we are allowing things to go outside. This globalization, when we were talking about the cost efficiency, what sir was saying, of course, it has definitely brought some cost benefits, allowing us to import things. So traditionally, as we all know, we are an agri-based country. Our main exports is agriculture, agro-commodities, and 70% of our imports. So our economy, we are an agri-based company, but our economy is import-based. We thrive on imports. If the imports don't come, most of the things which you find on the shelf or supermarket will not be there. Right? So, and of these imports, 70% of the import comes from China. So when we say we don't see China eye to eye, it is a myth. We are depending on them. It is a fact. Right? So I'll just give an example. The yarn, the raw material is PTA. We have many customers who have got factories in Silvassa, Vapi belt here. They import almost 8,000 containers every month. There are 4 or 5 big players like Gulosa, well-known, even Reliance, now Sanatan Textiles. So they make yarn, and the product, the quality is very cheap. They are very cost effective. And when the COVID came, the freight rate went rocket high. It became unviable to import. There's only one person in India who's manufacturing yarn, that is Reliance. So what does Reliance do? They first fulfill their own requirement, and surplus they put in the domestic market. But definitely he cannot fulfill the requirements of our domestic market. So when this thing freight went up, everything shifted from containerized movement to break bulk movement. And when these competitors, they united to make a shift. Because full shipload, one person cannot import. So that is where they collaborated, combined, and then they imported the raw material supplies mainly coming from, again, China and Taiwan, Bangkok, Thailand. So this is how, the circumstances and situation, force you to change your strategies in the real-time business. And as when now the rates again are flattening down because there's an oversupply again, the inventory which was stuck in the United States is all coming back. Again the rates are going down, and again the war is there on. Right? So the supply chains are complex, depending on the product, depending on the customer's requirement, depending on the manufacturing requirement, depending on the orders you have, and the trade route which the cargo takes. So then, why we have to look at, so when we go cross shores, cross borders, definitely we have to again abide by the law of land if we have to do business over there. And let me tell you, we have developed a judiciary system in India, but maritime and shipping and logistics, we still follow the age-old system of common law, working on the precedents, working on what Britishers left to us. Right? So now, when it is a dispute, a trade dispute, which is probably in international waters only concerning the shippings, yes, we have some precedents, we have some laws, we have some cases to refer to. But when it comes to land-side logistics, when the container is discharged or the cargo is discharged in the port and it has to go to a particular factory or a plant or a warehouse, inland, hinterland, up north, and there is a problem, there is a dispute, they are very critical, they are very complex. And we don't have a codified law for that. I was attending a conference in Delhi about 2 weeks back, which was on the legal framework and regulatory compliance leading to freight forwarding and MTOs. And there was a small courtroom drama which was presented by these lawyers. I was, odd man out. They were mostly lawyers. Like here, I'm an odd man out. So there was a courtroom drama. So there's an import consignment which comes, and it comes to Mumbai port. The bill of entry was filed. The custom clearance happens. The out of charge was given, but as soon as the out of charge was given to the import consignment, the DRI wing of the customs, they get an information that there's something wrong with this consignment. DRI puts the hold on the consignment. The consignment was put on a hold in a CFS, and for 3 years this consignment was lying. The custom officers were doing their investigation. After 3 years, they realized that everything was good, paperwork was good, and the shipment was released. But 3 years is a very long time. So there is a storage cost from the CFS onto the consignee. There was a detention cost of the container, the shipping line on the consignee, and then there's a dispute between customs, between a CFS, between a shipping line. The argument of customs that he was acting under the law, he is a Duryodhan, I am adamant, right? That this is the law states. The CFS has to operate, under HCCAR rule, section 6, subsection 2 states that if the container is held by the custom for some investigation, CFS is not supposed to charge. Shipping line says, I am not privy to these rules. I am an international operator. I have given my box here, so you have to pay me detention. Consignee says, why should I pay the detention? It is the customer who holds the box. I have not done anything wrong, my paperwork was fine. So this is how complex the situation is, and I leave the judgment to the jury. So, of course, these are the few things, why we have to revisit globalization. We have to restructure it probably. So I will, like sir has taken probably the perspective of United States. Being an Indian, I follow India. So I'll take something from India. So when Modi ji came to power in 2014, and he went on a world tour, everyone knows. He went from country to country to country, inviting FDIs into India. Please invest in India, and and on the back of that, we will also grow. But to his surprise, people rejected his proposal outright on the first trip. I think most of you know that. Why? Because everybody was saying that the logistic cost in India is very high. To set up a plant, there's too much of red tapeism to get the permission to set up industry in India. So these were the feedbacks which he got. So he came back, and around that time, I think on World Index of Logistic Performance, India was rating somewhere around 55, 56. So he came back, he has a meeting with his ministry, with Niti Aayog, and so they drafted out a plan how to bring down this logistic cost. So this started from port, because what happens, I'll give you a small and simple example. A 20-foot container gets the cargo from Dubai generally to Nhava Sheva, Mumbai port. The cost of freight is just about $200. Say in today's sense, 16,000 rupees approximately. Same container comes to CFS, does a custom clearance of 12,000 rupees. After doing the custom clearance, suppose the container has to go to Silvassa, the transportation cost is 25,000 rupees. So going from Nhava Sheva to Silvassa is 25,000 rupees, and coming from Jebel Dubai to India is 16,000 rupees. So does it make sense? So this is how the complex is supply chain. So he said, the foreign investors, they say, when we come to India, these type of costs are very high, and when we want to set up a plant, we have to go from window to window to get the permission to set up a plant. So he said, fine. He said, we will give a one window solution to you. You apply only to this window, and all your permissions will be granted. Internally, this department will work. On the port side, he implemented direct port delivery program. by force around 2017, February 2017, 5th February 2017 to be precise. So what under direct port delivery program, he just bypassed the CFS cost. So 12,000 rupees, you need not go to CFS. You take directly your delivery from port, you register under AEO program, authorized economic operator, and the ICT programs. If you fulfill all those requirements under risk management system, we give you permission to take your container directly from the port. You need not pass through all that. Right? Secondly, he says, if you are renowned, reputed importer who's got a history in customs, he will even give you deferred duty. You pay your duty after 15 days. Need not pay now. Right? So these kind of policies, plans and schemes he rolled out. And just to inform you, over the period of time now, India is ranking about 34, 35 in LPI. So we have progressed. So coming back to the challenges, right? So then the challenge, whenever trade happens, suppose we are sending a product from India to probably US. So 70% is the cost of product and 30% is the cost of logistics. And if it's 30% of the cost of logistics, 40% is the cost of transportation. And probably 28-29% is the cost of warehousing, 10% of inventory management, probably 5 to 10% order and admin, order processing and admin. So this is how the cost is divided. And why transportation in India is so expensive? Because it is unorganized. Skill set is not there. Our drivers are not trained. What happens? People are driving tractors during the harvesting months, and same people are coming on trailers on road for these containers also. This is the fact of life. So we need to work on the skill set development. We are talking on the skill set development of the white collar job. But what about the blue collar? What are we doing? What kind of mental model are we preparing for them? What kind of social or behavioral skills or probably technical skills we are developing on them? Are we having institutes for them? I remember when I started, people used to not even call this industry logistic industry. आप किधर जा रहे हो? Transport में काम करते हैं. I was going on ship actually, not on transport, but still. So you are bringing cargo with a transporter only. So logistic is not just transportation, it's warehousing, it's packaging, it's labeling, it's inventory management. It has evolved over a period of time. So, and what happens, what kind of skill set comes here? You will find when there is a conference like this of a shipping and logistics, you will find an engineer over there, you will find an accountant over there, you will find somebody from medical line also over there. Everyone who has done something and put on to anything will be there.
Right.
Including me, I was sailing ship when I'm here. So if you are giving this to a system, what can you expect out of system? It is absolutely clear, garbage in, garbage out. If you will give quality, premium aspects of skills, you will get such results. Right? So skill development is one aspect. Now, of course, in India, we have certain institutes who are offering some degrees in shipping and logistics, exports, imports. People are aware of that. But in our days, they were not. I'm telling you honestly. In our days, it was only engineering and medical. People only knew two things. I think our parents didn't know anything existed other than doctors and engineers. So I was preparing for engineering. I couldn't pass out the first attempt, but my preparation was, I think, substantially good, so I cleared the merchant exams. So skill development is one aspect probably, where the government has to work and probably has to address with a deeper thought process by giving, these people, especially the blue collar guys, because they are the one who's delivering day and night. They are the one who are on the job 24/7 under the sun. So we have to give a serious thought on that. Then information technology. This is a serious drawback which was existing in shipping and logistics till recent years. You have seen banks how well they have adopted to information technology. Earlier we were used to plan a holiday, to do a bank work. I will take a holiday next day tomorrow because I have to do my bank work. I will go there, take a coupon, stand and I have to do all that blah blah blah. I will get free by 2 or 3 o'clock. That used to be the banking. But now everything is at the click of the button, as sir says. But think before clicking. So everything is so very well, envisaged, and probably IT systems and software, everything, soft skills have been adopted so well by the banking industry. Things have transformed. Whereas in logistics, still people are moving on paper. You have to have the hard copy in hand to clear your shipment. You have to have hard copies coming from overseas, from the port of origin, port of loading, file in customs. It costs a lot of delay. Delay is money. That's the cost we are incurring. Still for documents which can be printed on board sitting in the office, still people have to queue up in the shipping lines office, in the customs office, CFSs to get the shipments cleared. So we have to imbibe this change in logistics and shipping industry to give, movement to the globalization. Regulatory hurdles, as I said, they are not new. I just give you a simple courtroom drama. So we have to, look at that. So what is the way forward? Of course, these hurdles are there. These problems are existing. So what is the way forward? It's not that government is not doing anything. Government, last budget only, 2023 budget, our government has announced a logistic policy for our country. And if you, I just may tell you, our logistic industry was about $225 billion in 2021. I'm talking of India only. And it is projected to be $380 billion by 2025. So that is the kind of growth we are expecting in this industry. So it becomes more than necessary now to have a proper framework. And government is looking at to form a logistic ministry also very soon. So as a part of this thought process, which has been already started. So logistics policy has certain important pillars. One is to share online information with all the departments, rail, road, sea. Similarly, they are saying information should be real time, move from one department to another department. In port, they are building port community system where all the stakeholders like shipping lines, CFSs, importers, freight forwarders, CHA will communicate with each other on this port community system. There will be online transaction of information. You can even pay your payments through this portal in the coming years. So these are some few things which government is doing, and they are not only doing this, they are also going to have a department which will monitor all this. So there will be a regulatory framework under this, and these departments, the duty of this department is to see wholesale how these projects are implemented in various parts of the industry and the country. Then, of course, after that, skills that we have already talked about, that government is opening some institution, but they are mainly for the white collar jobs. What I am really looking at, the government to focus on the blue collar job as well, to educate the workforce who is on the ground, give them the sense of responsibility, the sense of safety in the working environment, sense of security. That is what we need to impart to them, and that is where our quality will come out. That is where our quality will stand out in the delivery. Then we have to look of imbibing this technology into our system. We have to look for the smart yard system, whereby everything is connected on the system. You sitting in your office, sir, should know where your cargo is, what is the status of your cargo, whether it is under clearance or cleared, already moved out of the port. That kind of information flow should be there. The smart yard management should be coupled with the port system, and you can have the queue sitting in your office, right? Then we should have probably the warehouses. The warehousing industry in India is in a nascent stage. Basically, we have godowns, we don't have warehouses, to be honest. Right? We are going towards the warehousing schemes. We have to build greener warehouses. We have to make warehouses compliant with the international standards, whereby the importer or exporter from overseas is confident that he's storing his goods in safe hands. So our group is aggressively working in the field sector of warehousing, and we have approximately 90 locations across the country. And we have given build-to-suit warehouse to Flipkart, for example. We are handling their complete logistics. So when a delivery from Flipkart is coming, it is coming from our warehouse. Yes, and then another thing, like sir said, ESG. Yes, we have to be responsible, towards the humanity, and we have to probably look for alternative fuels, right? We have to look for fuels which can reduce carbon footprints. So people are already looking at electric vehicles. People are looking at LPG, LNG, and the future is hydrogen fuel. That is where people are focusing now, because the problem with electrical vehicles is you have to store electricity in a battery, and for that you need lead, or for lead you have to do mining. So this electrical vehicle is also a short-lived story because of the environmental aspect coming into the picture. So these are the few thoughts I would leave you with, sir. Hopefully I have given some insight to you how globalization and supply chain are linked. Thank you for bearing me. Thank you.
Some 20 odd years back from Mumbai, I think some scrap that was being imported at Tughlakabad, Delhi surrounding.
Correct, sir.
Live shells, they exploded, and at that time, I think 20 years back, we didn't have 20-foot equivalent containers outside scanning facility.
Correct, sir.
Is it now installed across all major ports at least today?
It is there in all major ports. It is there in all major ports. It is scanned, and then but it is not scanned. Every container is not scanned. It is on the risk management system which the customer has implemented.
It's there.
It's there in place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you, everyone. It was a very insightful take on the theme of today's event. We got a little bit of everything, that is today's current trends. We got it from the history, the digital, the logistics, everything. So it was really great. It was an honor to hear all the valuable thoughts. So now further, we would like to felicitate our guests with a small token of appreciation for taking out time from their busy schedules and giving us such insightful talks. So I would like to invite Bhargavi ma'am to felicitate our guests. Shastri sir, please. Mr. Nand sir. Sir, please. Mr. Jamal sir, please.
Thank you very much.
Augustine sir.
We now be concluding with the inaugural address of the conference and hope to see you for more engaging discussions during the course of the day. Thank you once again.